I like how our commentary is very relaxed, but the footage is just explosions
Carnage.
and flames,
Absolute carnage.
Bouncing around. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to PlayStation Underground. On today's episode, a very special game to see. We are seeing the new DLC of Call of Duty World War II, The Resistance. And with me and Sid, we have two special guests. We are joined by Michael and Aaron from Sledgehammer. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Michael, it's good to have you back, especially right after the launch stream that we had you on. We are on Anthropoid, one of the new maps coming to multiplayer in Call of Duty World War II. Tell me a little bit about it. What are we seeing on this map?
Yeah, you know, the last time we had a chance to talk, it was launch night, and that was a lot of fun.
Kind of a big deal.
A big deal for all of us in the studio, and since that day, since November 3rd, we have been heads down on new events and new DLC. So following up the winter event, which happened in December, we just launched into the Resistance event, and that comes with the Resistance DLC, and it's all about bringing to life the player's fantasy of being a resistance fighter in World War II. This is an iconic map that takes place in Prague, and it really represents the resistance that happened there in the city as the Germans had occupied and the local forces were sort of pushing them out. And, you know, all of this is really bringing to life this brand new Resistance Division, which is a new way to play. It's focused on more of a movement and awareness-based style of gameplay, and then putting you in brand new locations around Europe.
I think this is a question that a lot of gamers have, is that how does a studio like Sledgehammer kind of decide on how to move forward with new maps? Because multiplayer is, you know, part of the lifeblood of the series, right? So adding new maps is kind of a tremendous deal for, you know, the overall scope of the project. So how do you guys narrow that all down and make those decisions?
Yeah, one of the
Aaron?
it's a great question. I think one of the things that we really look closely is all the maps that have been out since launch, and we really try to listen to our feedback from our fans, from the community, and it's a real opportunity for us to infuse new play styles and different things within these maps. That kind of coupled with the fact that our new division, I think something that's, you know, exciting about World War II is our divisions. And so when we're designing our new division, we're also thinking about the space, thinking about what are these new division abilities? How can we also make sure that these maps are going to take advantage of some of those abilities? We want to make sure with the Resistance Division that there's a lot of good tight corridors and things so that, you know, these resistance soldiers are going to play a big part in that gameplay.
Oh, hey guys, Sid here. You guys playing some Call of Duty World War II?
Sid, you're joining us. You're finally piping up.
I've just been lost in the footage here because I mean these guys at Sledgehammer, we're sort of surrounded by a whole team here at Sledgehammer, and they're giving us this early look, and boy, they sure know what they're doing.
Yeah, I guess I should have also pointed out, sorry to interrupt, Sid, that the Resistance DLC launches January 30th on PS4.
That's right.
Which, if you're watching this at the time of publish, is like tomorrow.
That's right. And I'm curious about this new division, though. Yeah. So how does the new division work? I mean, where does it fit in? I think the division concept is something that was one of my favorite elements from World War II. So tell me a little bit about the Resistance Division.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. The division for us, the divisions in general, was really our way of giving you that play experience of being in World War II, in the Return the Boots on the Ground, of course. But, you know, when you think about it, these were individual soldiers that didn't have, you know, modern day technology and information, and so each style of gameplay was really representing a type of real force. And, you know, at launch we had some really iconic things happening with the airborne, the infantry, and the armored divisions, but since then we wanted to showcase a new way that the Allied forces were involved, and the Resistance lent to that. So this really is talking about how there were these local forces that were really trying to disrupt the German war machine, right? And they did that through things like sabotage and espionage. They did it through having counterintelligence measures, and so that's really the inspiration for being part of the Resistance Division. So the skills and abilities are focused on that. You are a little bit more aware of what's going on around you, so you pick up a little more information on your minimap. You have the ability to scramble minimaps around you, so it's a little stealthier.
Interesting.
Yeah, you have a quicker melee because, of course, Resistance were doing things often in the dark or quietly, and so that sort of assassin-type quick melee is one of your abilities. Oh. And so as you add all this up with the new uniforms and the new weapons, you can just sort of picture in your head what it might like to be a French Resistance or a Polish Resistance behind enemy lines, you know, trying as much as possible to damage the Axis efforts without being seen and heard and being aware of the bigger conflict.
I love it. It never gets old.
I like how your point was emphasized, punctuated by a bomb.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's nothing like a Polish resistance fighter who happens to have a glide bomb up his sleeve.
Yeah, of course.
It's so cool. This is going to be my new favorite class, I can already tell.
When are you adding the Wizard division? That's what I want to know. When are we adding a little high fantasy to this brutal reality here?
Well, you know, the interesting thing and something that we're really excited about is this idea that, you know, because it's not a pick system like we had on Advanced Warfare with Pick 13, these are more, you know, traditional roles that you're playing. And we have a lot of opportunities to continue to expand that. So probably not the Wizard, but you can imagine as we see as we see new ways to play and new play styles, it really gives us a chance to extend the division concept.
So now we are on the occupation map. Aaron, I got to hear from you now. What are we looking at?
So really what we, you know, with occupation, this was an opportunity for us to take a favorite map, and it just made a lot of sense. You know, Paris with the occupied Germans, it just made a ton of sense. So early on, this was something that we had talked about, and it just fit Resistance perfectly. It played really well with our new divisions and our new, you know, skills that we're bringing. And originally, right, this was called Resistance, and so we love the lore of what this map has done in the franchise, and to really bring it back and to really put it into World War II context was pretty exciting.
How does the team balance out the micro-level detail of a map like this, where every brick seems to be, you know, visible, to the macro level of, you know, how do we funnel players a certain way? How do we manage the flow of combat in something in which we actually don't have control over the combatants? I mean, how does the studio do that balancing act?
Yeah, it's always a really interesting exercise that you see happen on the floor, where the artists are pushing for the best production values and visual quality, and the designers have an equal push on making sure that the map flow and balance, you know, are best for what they're trying to do in gameplay. And that collaboration that sometimes is, you know, conflict meets collaboration, if you will, finds the best of both, really. And
it's a perfectly well-oiled machine. There's never any conflict.
No,
I
of
think
course
it's just,
not.
You know, it's just
Not a single raised voice
No,
has ever
never.
glanced these hollowed halls.
And you know, the interesting thing about it, if you sit in these exercises, you'll realize that both groups want the very best for fans, right? And it is the nuances that make the difference. The nuances in visual quality, the nuances in gameplay. So that balance, it goes back and forth over the course of months and months. And you know, in this particular example in Occupation, probably the most iconic show of force that the Nazi Germany occupation had in all of Europe, right? They took over Paris. They took over the center of Europe, and so you'll see from the banners to the actual V on the Eiffel Tower here, like this was really where Hitler and his regime showcased how fast they would take over Europe. And so to bring it back here and to put you on the, you know, this iconic battle that really happened and really sort of punctuated the liberation when the Allies made it into Paris and sort of turning the tide back. Yeah, this was the perfect sort of map to bring back for us, so we're pretty proud of it.
How much does the, you know, this might betray my ignorance in game design. I don't know if you guys knew. I'm not a game developer. How much does the narrative team and, you know, the team behind lore and storytelling, you know, kind of have a say in how these maps come together? Because as you're saying, a lot of these maps are rooted in the actual history and story behind these iconic locations. And I'm curious about the interplay between those teams.
Yeah, I think you know, it's something that I feel gets overlooked in MP, but I think what people would maybe find surprising is how much does go into that. You know, like Michael was kind of saying about the art team, you know, they'll spend tons of time. There's folders and folders filled with resource images, you know, researching, you know, what were in these buildings, what did the signage look like, and beyond just that, beyond just the visuals, there's little stories being told throughout the map. If you look at, you know, we want it to look like, hey, someone just fled this area, right? There is actually a resistance kind of camp in one of the corners. And it's doing two things. There's, for people that are really looking deep, those things can be found in the map. It's also providing landmarking in certain areas that you're in the map where you can really kind of call out to your friends when you're playing on a team. And so those things really are important, and they don't kind of happen overnight. There's something we develop, and we come back to the table and we say, hey, in this section, let's do this. In this section, this makes more sense. So a lot goes into each map that we develop.
Can I point out that the grenade game in this is just unreal?
It's out of control.
Like I had this realization that I'm not very good at Call of Duty actually watching these gentlemen play.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're seeing the footage of maybe someone a little more proficient than the average player, potentially.
That may or may not have been involved with the development.
I don't want to make him uncomfortable. So.
But it's still insane to watch these grenade throws. I mean, what am I doing with my life?
Do you? I mean, do you guys bask in the footage online of people that just capture outrageous or spectacular moments in a match? Because video games are so rife with that. Those 1 in a million chances of something happening, like a knife throw across the map or something like that.
It's certainly. It's remarkable when you see how quickly the community can reach the level that developers play at. I mean, what you're watching here is 12 of our best designers playing, and they're playing really well. And I find myself at times, feeling good if I'm about a 1 KD inside the studio, because I figure if I'm average in the studio, I'm going to be pretty good in the wild. But that advantage doesn't last very long. There are players out there that do unbelievable things.
Whoa.
And so, yeah, those videos are fantastic, and there's a celebration of how proficient and dedicated they become quickly, too, right? By this time tomorrow, after release, most of the community will be playing at this level. So don't feel bad, Sid, because I oftentimes am humbled myself.
All right, so now we are back. We are looking at the Valkyrie map, and who wants to give us the little highlight? Who's the intro reel for Valkyrie? Michael, you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. I think Valkyrie, another iconic moment in Resistance lore from World War II, right? This is towards the tail end of the war, where it was an internal German resistance movement where they were trying to assassinate Hitler at the Wolfslayer compound on the eastern border. And this location, super iconic, you probably remember from the film.
Yep.
Right, and so we brought this back to life.
I saw that.
Yes.
I can't believe it. Yeah,
So
all right, well, there you go.
If
Sorry, Michael.
No, it's quite all right. But yes, exactly right. So you're really sort of representing the German resistance, if you will, at this point in time. And this is this compound of connected German fortresses that have a lot of interconnecting pieces that have great crossplay and really bring to life that sense of disruption of the German war machine.
Well said. And as things are on fire and I like how our commentary is very relaxed, but the footage is just explosions
Carnage.
and flames.
Absolute carnage.
Bouncing around.
Like this room in particular right here that you're seeing too is pretty chaotic. It's a lot of fun.
And the other thing that matches with all of this is, there's brand new weapons that represent the German and the French and the Polish Axis movement. So, new weapons, new uniforms, new loot, all that stuff coming together with this theme of the resistance that carries all the way through. And so, as you're watching our design team play here, you'll also be seeing the new weapons that come along with this.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Any favorites, early favorites from your playtests?
Yeah, I think one of my favorites is the Saboteur basic training. So we also brought back some basic trainings. I've always, you kind of mentioned it earlier about grenades. And so this is, it lets you take 2 lethals and also changes your fuse time on them. So it gives you a little bit more speed to kill, which I enjoy. I'm
gonna get that one. That was looking really good. I mean, so that's what it was. It was a short fuse. It was a short grenade fuse.
That's right. So guys that play a lot, you kind of just muscle memory know the fuse on the grenade, so that if you see people at different ranges, you're going to let go at a certain time.
Yeah.
So this allows you to change it up, and they're going to stop quicker, which really gives you a speed advantage in those battles.
That's awesome.
And, we talk about things that are our favorites, and there's favorite weapons, there's favorite characters, divisions. One of the things that we think is a favorite studio and a favorite with fans is we're also bringing back Prop Hunt.
Oh, yeah?
As a game mode. So should we take a look at that in one of our modes?
Absolutely.
Please. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so speaking of favorites, this is one of the more fun party game style ways to interact with Call of Duty World War II, and this is Prop Hunt, which just went live as part of this event too. What you're seeing here, it's a unique game mode, right? And
what are we seeing here, Mike?
Well, we're seeing
orient me, please.
Yes, if you were ever interested in playing as a fire hose on a battleship in World War II, this is the game mode for you.
Perfectly normal desire. I mean, nothing wrong with that at all. So the idea here is the other team is trying to flush out these imposters, essentially, right?
Yeah, and it's really funny. You play and play and play, as I know both of you do. And every once in a while, you just want a palate cleanse, a different
Yeah.
way to play. And so this was sort of that fantasy of a kid of playing hide and go seek. You take the form of an existing object in the map, and then you try and place it in a way where you can't be found. And as you can see here, pretty good job, right?
I love the guy just kicks the door and shoots at a bunch of barrels. He's like, all right, this room is clear.
And you know, it was funny because this came up as a franchise game mode, just sort of as an idea. How would this react? And we have the opportunity with fans to bring new types of game modes and test them and see how people react. And this one became a fan favorite.
Oh, come on, bud, you're so close.
And the
It's right there. He shot everything but that.
Yeah.
everything.
It's
but the-
surprising how much that is exciting. And if you think about what's happening,
Yeah.
right?
Like, I would have shot that first because I would have been like, why would the developer have laid this big clunky thing on the ground there? You know, like it would mess up your locomotion, right?
Oh, Sid, suddenly you
He's
are the
looking.
Call of Duty pro. Oh,
He's looking.
Oh, he's sniffing.
Uh-oh,
Oh.
he's close.
Oh.
And then he goes.
This is
Isn't that great?
this is the best.
Do they have
Now-
a sense that he's in the room?
They do on occasion, and you can see it on the left-hand side of the screen. You whistle, and so that sort of Marco Polo kind of gameplay gets introduced.
Now, what's the benefit of Ray whistling during
So
okay.
he doesn't control that. So it's
Oh,
just it's gonna
I
go
see.
off.
Okay, I see.
It's meant to give the searchers an advantage.
Okay.
And you know, I have to note, you guys ran a blog on the Sony PlayStation blog.
We
that
did.
Was a fan vote,
We did.
and we won for best multiplayer.
You sure did.
So thank you for that.
Abso-
Thank you to fans.
That's right. You guys did very, very well, actually.
yeah, it's the Game of the
Sledgehammer
Year awards, yeah.
Sledgehammer came on super, super high. Studio of the Year, Game of the Year. I think gold trophies on those fronts. So
And that was awesome. And thanks to fans, of course, for voting. But it's, you know, sometimes it's things like Prop Hunt
Yeah.
that just give you another way to play between War and
Yep.
Core and TDM and Prop Hunt and all that we've brought.
The whistling.
And the whistling.
I'm dying.
You know, it.
Oh.
There
Ah!
that was
I can
good.
I can think of no better transition time to our next mode than that. So excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at The Darkest Shore coming to the Resistance DLC pack for Call of Duty World War II. Let's check in the intro.
The train wreck.
I watched you at the briefing. You don't like this place.
What is it? Rideau said you'd been here before.
Yeah, well, this place has got some history. Poking out of the sea like Lucifer's middle finger. No surprised Stroke came here to this piece of shit island. I'm just wondering why we followed him.
We need to find the rest of the sword before he does. We need to...
We know why you're here, Marie. At least this time you're not pretending to care about our cause.
This is different. We should have heavy fog all morning. If everything goes well, nobody will fire a shot.
Yeah, why have things ever gone well for our little tea party? Shit. Oh, shit.
Stay close. Let's move, people.
Where's the other boat?
This damn island. This goddamn island!
Calme-toi.
Still feeling optimistic, darling? Oh, I can't believe I'm saying this. I wish we were back in Germany.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are very lucky to be joined by Glenn and Cameron. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Darkest Shore is the next chapter of the Zombies experience in Call of Duty World War II, specifically the Resistance DLC, which is out January 30th. Continuing the horror, continuing the excellent gameplay. Tell me a little bit about what what brought this section of the DLC together. Who wants to go first?
Well,
Glenn,
I think
go
we'll
ahead.
probably work together. And to take it
took a while for us to get to this place. We wanted to have something that was different and worked within the story, and also maybe has, there's follows some true events, and that was kind of important to us on this one. And again, we want to ramp up the horror, so you're going to see some crazy stuff in here that we're trying to continue to make it scary and horrific and wonderful.
We wanted to make sure that we were still in the shadow of World War II, in the shadow of the historic events that took place. And so, yeah, we looked over a map and found some interesting places where this might have actually happened. And so that was a lot of fun. And then, of course, bringing back our cast to kind of relive these stories, and historically to fit in the calendar, this had to happen about a week after the events in Middelburg from the Final Reich. And so we've got characters that are fatigued and still weary from their last engagement, and so it really gives us a great launch pad for this next portion of the adventure.
Oh, go ahead, Glenn.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Really distinct look to this one. I've been playing the zombie games ever since World at War. Love all these different maps that have come out over the years, but this one stands out.
Oh,
this one is
rolling.
Yeah, this is very interesting. So tell me a little bit about, as much as you can, tell me where we are.
Sure. Well, there's a whole series of islands just north of Germany that were used for naval bases that were, and instrumental in a lot of the history of both in World War II and earlier. What we really liked was the variety of both just kind of climate and geography and the interesting patterns that you could find there. And we played through several maps that kind of highlighted these things, and we really like this. Now, it's interesting, in the zombies community, there's a little bit of a history to fog and fog rolling in, and it has been both applauded and cursed by some of the fans. And we said, you know what? We're going to take a stab at doing it right. We're going to take a stab at doing this and making it so. I mean, the danger of fog, of course,
it took a long time.
Yeah,
right. I mean,
yes.
The fog would roll in, and then we'd change the sky. I mean, this isn't just like, well, let's put some fog in.
Yeah, yeah. There was a lot of balancing with the opacity and how thick was this, and how long does it stick around. In a game where the whole point is keeping zombies as far away as possible by shooting them the minute you see them, what happens when you can't see them until they're 5 feet away? And
would change everything.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly, and that visceral fear of they are right on me, we've got this. It's something that thickens and thins and varies throughout gameplay, and we found it just really helps to keep you on your toes. You find yourself grateful to be able to shoot zombies at a distance when you've been holding them off with a shovel for the past minute.
I'm so grateful to fight zombies. Cameron, you're the creative director on the Zombies mode, and that includes the original in Call of Duty World War II and the Resistance DLC, correct?
Yes,
so what would you feel, maybe the answer is the fog, which you just described, but what do you feel as creative director was the most important thing that the team nailed for this new chapter of Zombies?
Well, we wanted to make sure, I mean, horror is our leading kind of the leading edge of everything we do. This is something that Glenn and I are constantly talking about. We want this to be the sledgehammer version of Zombies is the scariest version, and but you don't want to play the same note on the piano. So how could we make sure that the type of horror being presented in the Darkest Shore was different? And we're playing with this is a much more vertical map. There's a lot more kind of up and down. We've got a little more. As you saw that opening scene, the zombies coming out of the surf. There's a lot more environmental kind of threats, I guess you could say. And this is at a location that is right. We've gone from the heart of Germany to the outskirts, and this is towards the end of the war. And so we've got planes flying overhead. We've got elements of the war on a grander sense taking place around us, and so I think that gives us a very unique feel.
It's very different kind of isolation. You're kind of in the shadow and the underbelly almost of this giant conflict.
The seething underbelly.
That's right. And speaking of horror, I mean, Glenn, obviously you have I think a lot of thoughts on horror in general based on your background. Working on the original Dead Space.
Right.
When you guys sat down to sort of build Call of Duty World War II, I mean, did you immediately go, Nazi zombies, I want that one, and here's like, how did that all come together?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've been
Page 1, day 1.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it since we joined Activision, and this is the first time that we've gotten a chance to really make it here in the studio. And it's my first horror game in 8-9 years since the original Dead Space. And there's so many learnings that we got from Dead Space that the guys are sick and tired of hearing about it. But didn't.
But we're not, so lay it on thick.
Well, I mean, some of the things that, like, we spent 3 months in the beginning of Dead Space trying to come up with enemies that were really scary. And at the we tried fish and we tried amoebas and all kinds of stuff. And at the end of the day, the scariest thing is just a human who's insane, right? What do they do with what they've got around you, right? And so that's why in Dead Space they're all based on humans, and we wanted to do the same thing here. I also like the lore. The lore is very simple. Shoot them in the head and they're dead, right? Not like with sometimes when we talk about fantasy, it's like dragons or it's different magic.
You don't need to cast a spell.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, and although we like doing that in some games, this game was about sort of the purity of the zombies, if you will.
Well, earlier in this program, I asked Michael if you guys were adding a wizard division, and that sounds like no. So I'm already out of luck.
No. I think one of our driving. I think one of the focuses on this is a tangible sort of horror. We wanted to have this. This looks like something you could see in your backyard. This looks like something you could see.
Where? Which backyard are you talking about?
Brooklyn.
There we go. There we go.
I love Brooklyn, by the way. I lived there for 4 years.
There's only love there.
Yeah, I grew up there. Yeah, no, the mood is really important in a horror game, and spending a lot of time on the mood. And this one was a little of a challenge because we wanted to do it in the day, and it's difficult to try and you've got to have something, right? Yeah. You don't see too many horror movies during the day, so we feel like we got the mood. Then we can go down inside. The idea again was that everything that the Germans built was in these areas was kind of dangerous, right? That's kind of the word we used to describe, like when you're building even a door or something, make it feel like, I don't know if I want to touch that, uncomfortable.
I don't want to touch zombies either. I mean, they're very not clean.
You should see will they see the new one in this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we spend a lot of time on our new zombies, that's for sure.
Now, Cameron, I know you don't want to get too in the weeds on this one because we want to let fans experience it. Right. There's a huge history of just allowing the community to kind of come in and kind of crowdsource these zombie modes, but I feel like it's safe to say you have a few Easter eggs, a few secrets tucked away in this somewhere, right?
It is. It's one of the best parts about building these maps is you're like, okay, well, here's one playthrough from start to finish. Now let's add a layer and another layer and another layer. And we've got a brilliant crew of designers working on this with us, and it's always about, well, what can we hide? Hey, I was up here till 2 in the morning last night. Look what I snuck away in this one as well, and getting to kind of surprise and delight each other.
I love that stuff when they come up with something new. And
well, it's 2 in the morning. Yeah. You're a little loopy. You're going to put some gnarly stuff into the game.
Some Mountain Dew and Cheetos can be incredible fuel towards.
There's usually a lot of emails between 2 and 4 in the morning.
There really are.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's our first audience, right? If it's something that gives us those giggles, that gives us that malicious knuckle rubbing, that's going to be so good.
Malicious knuckle rubbing. That's a keeper.
So I mean, that was a big part of this is what can we hide away? What can we keep hidden there? It's and every time we think, hey, this is going to be impossible. The community out there is incredible. I mean,
they haven't figured out our language yet.
They still haven't figured out our language. We've got a unique language we've given the undead. There's still a few mysteries left in the Final Reich, but this the Darkest Shore is going to double down on that.
And you're going to reveal it all right now.
Oh, no.
Nope. This show is over.
That's a good secret if they can't find it just yet. like we did one in Dead Space. They found it within a week.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible how quickly you get enough bright people together and focused on going into the darkest corners here.
Look at this.
Sid, this is amazing.
Detail.
Yeah.
What you try and do is try and make it claustrophobic. So if the ceilings are too tall, you put the pipes and you put all this stuff hanging down. They also make great shadows to kind of just get things going. If especially when a zombie walks across the light.
Like creating a haunted house or a single-player mission, you can really orchestrate a scare with, you know exactly where the player is going to be, where they're going to be looking. But in a game like Nazi Zombies, where you're really creating an arena for this, you have to focus more on kind of terror-rich environments, like places where there's odds of this fear happening.
It's more of a tension we have to create, and the scares aren't as there aren't as many as you would in a single player. Although you can get quite a few in here.
Yeah.
We got two great phrases out of this here discussion. We got malicious knuckle rubbing, which is a keeper, and then terror-rich environments, which I really like that one too. So we're going to keep
full of them.
Yeah, we're going to keep those on
he does
close
a lot
at
of
hand.
the writing too.
I see.
I may have asked this of both you and Michael on launch night. I don't remember, but in the zombies modes, and in Darkest Shore included, how do you make it scary when you're playing it with 3 other people? You're not by yourself. You're not isolated. You have friends.
It's a great question. It's actually at the heart of this, right?
Yep.
We talk about it every day. Is how do you get 4? And there are times when you look at it, 80% of the time you are alone. So we have to try and think of it that way. Okay, they're alone. They are usually traveling a lot faster. So in some places you try and slow them down just a little bit with a door or a right turn or something scary around the corner. Audio does a lot too. Audio can really get you. And then we're going to be trying out some new stuff, and I'll give you one example.
Okay, just one.
Sort more of the psychological. So I used to always knock on our audio director's door, Don. I would knock on it and would scare the crap out of him. And I didn't mean to, but he's just listening to music. So he puts the knock in, and so you may be all alone. You're walking down, and you'll hear knock, and you don't know if it's in the game,
or if it's
and
that's cruel.
It freaks you out. And we've done it with a few other little things, and we're going to start to sprinkle them in a little bit more as we start to get more psychological terror in.
I'm into it. It's looking good.
Yeah,
looking real good.
So this, did we miss anything? Any last comments, guys?
No, I definitely think the part of our design, while you're a lot safer if you're back to back with the rest of your team, part of our design is to how can we pull you apart? How can we separate the group? How can we get one member of the team running off on his own? Because that's when in the horror movie, like, why are they separating? No, that's when things are going to go down.
That's our goal.
We try to build that into the design.
Well, this is The Darkest Shore, which is the next chapter of the zombies experience in Call of Duty World War II. Cameron, Glenn, thank you, gentlemen, both so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Delightful conversation.
Yes, very nice.
And ladies
I
and
love
gentlemen,
horror fans. Thank you.
I'm all about the horror. We'll have to trade movie lists sometime.
Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, please do not name all the movies right now, Sid. Ladies and gentlemen, that was another look at the Resistance DLC coming to Call of Duty World War II on January 30th on PS4. This has been PlayStation Underground. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.
PlayStation